Hello, law students. This is Mrs. Politsky, and I have notes for Chapter 5, Section 1. We're going to talk about personal injury laws, and we're going to talk about offenses against individuals. So, how do torts and crimes differ? Crimes, for the most part, are public wrongs or offenses against society, whereas torts are private or civil wrongs. In other words, it's a person versus another person. Okay, those who commit torts, these are usually people who are injured as a result of some kind of action. They can usually be sued or obtain some kind of judgment for monetary damages to compensate for that injury. So, elements of a tort. Torts are pretty broad. They cover a lot of different kind of issues. But the big key here is to establish liability, like who is responsible for committing a certain action. And there are four elements of a tort. First is the duty. This is a legal obligation either to do something or not to do something. Sometimes when you sign contracts, you're obligated to perform certain acts. This would be in response to that. So, duties created by tort law, this is the duty not to injure another person or to damage their reputation or such. Duty not to interfere with property rights of others. So, trespassing would be an example of a violation of that. Duties not to interfere with economic rights, the right for an individual to contract. So, if I have an individual who is wanting to purchase a car from me and another person comes in and tries to tell him not to, that would be interfering on my right to contract with another. And hence, I might have grounds for a lawsuit or a tort. Aside from duties, you have breach. This is a violation of a duty. Okay. Violations of a duty must be proved before an injured party can collect any kind of damages. So many torts acknowledge a breach only when the defendant possesses a certain mental state at the time of the breach. You can have intentional torts. This requires the breach to be intentional. In other words, it was on purpose. You can have negligence, which is not based on intent, but it's caused by carelessness. And there are quite a few of those that happen. If you damage someone's car because you are not paying attention, that could be a negligence kind of claim. And then finally, there's also what we call strict liability. You don't have to have an intent. You don't have to be negligent. This is kind of the catch-all category, but it's imposed simply because a duty was violated or caused some form of injury. Aside from duties and breaches, an injury, a harm that is recognized by law, an injury resulting from a breach of duty must be proved. But if you act reckless, there is usually no tort. And then finally, aside from duty, breach, and injury, causation. This is proof that the breach caused the injury, meaning that you have to prove that this accident or incident is what actually caused someone to have like a neck injury or such. Anyway, breach of duty caused the injury. In other words, that you did not fulfill a duty or it was not done properly, thus an injury occurs. There are different degrees of causation as a result of that. So, responsibility for a tort. All people, including minors, are responsible for their conduct and are therefore liable for their tort. This includes children and insane people. When we talk about vicarious liability, this is when one person is liable for the tort of another. Some exceptions are parents are not always liable for the torts of their children. But at the same time, if, let's say, a 10-year-old breaks windows as a result of the parents' negligence, then yeah, the parents are probably going to be held responsible. In some states, parents may be liable by statute up to a certain amount of money for vandalism and malicious destruction, kind of the example I gave a second ago. Parents may also be liable if they give their children dangerous instrumentalities. That would be like giving a kid a gun and not really instructing them on the proper use of that. Or if their child has dangerous habits of throwing rocks at vehicles or doing things that are going to possibly injure another. The liability of an employer for the acts of the employees is also covered under this vicarious criminal liability. So if I am negligent to keep track of what my employees are doing, thus I could be, as their boss, be held responsible for that. All right, that's the end of section 1. Thank you very much.